The Holocaust was a horrific act perpetrated by the Nazi Party in the 1930s and 40s. While anti-Semitism was the overriding factor, other victim groups, such as Bolsheviks, homosexuals, and disabled people, were also discriminated against. The perpetrated motivations for the violence shown toward these groups was as varied as the groups themselves, but the existence of these motivations point towards a structuralist argument, as opposed to an intentionalist one. This presentation will reference three case studies: the reaction to the Reichstag fire, the liquidation of Ernst Röhm, and the horrors of Action T4, that point toward differing perpetrator motivations than simply anti-Semitism, and within that evidence will show the fallacies within the intentionalist argument. The Reichstag fire and the reaction to it is a perfect example of non-anti-Semitic discrimination. As Doris Bergen states, the Reichstag fire gave Hitler the opportunity he wanted to attack the Bolshevik Party within Germany. Hitler did this because of the potential threat that the Communist Party posed to the Nazis, as its popularity was spreading all throughout Europe. Furthermore, the Reichstag fire gave Hitler the chance to effectively end democracy within Germany. As Bergen again states, many of the mainstream parties were intimidated by the attacks on the communists. So blatant was Hitler after the discovery of the fire that he declared, according to Rudolf Diels, quoted by Fritz Tobias, "Every communist official must be shot, and every communist deputy hung this very night." Hitler then used a particular action which had not, and still has not, been proven to be the work of the Communist Party, and used already existing hatreds and fears to disband political opposition. This shows the Nazis' pragmatic use of these pre-existing hatreds for their own benefit. Thus we see a reactionary, pragmatic use of a situation, not intentionally planned, which led to another decision and then another. The case of Ernst Röhm is an interesting and at times contradictory one. Hitler was reportedly aware from the time of Röhm's appointment as head of the Storm Battalion, or SA, that his friend was a homosexual. This was despite the heated anti-homosexual Nazi propaganda, stemming from a nationalistic desire for the German people to continue to procreate and spread the pure Aryan ideal. Ernst Röhm's homosexuality was considered in German circles to be an open secret. It is interesting to note that in this instance, public opinion and the Nazis' actions were opposed, as most German people were in fact anti-gay. Hitler's pragmatism was apparent even with this issue, however. Harry Oosterhuis writes that Hitler used the charge of homosexuality to eliminate political opponents. After being convinced by Goebbels that Röhm was intending to use the power of the SA to overthrow the government, Hitler used the excuse of his homosexuality to liquidate him and several other members of the SA High Command in the Night of the Long Knives. Again, it is apparent that due to perceived necessity, Hitler used somebody's difference to excuse himself from murder. Homosexuals were not attacked with the same level of violence as the Jews, but the Nazis showed that they were certainly willing to use the fear of homosexuals in pragmatic ways. This again is a differing motivation toward a minority, and shows that the Nazis, far from intending from the beginning for the final solution, pragmatically reacted to changing political pressures. Action T4 was the birthplace of the final solution, and it is attested as being the training ground for the staff of the death camps. However, it was not the members of the Jewish religious order that were sent to Action T4, but rather people who were disabled, who were the first people slaughtered in Germany. The number of disabled people euthanized within Germany from 1939 onward has been conservatively estimated at 120,000, and according to Götz-Ali, this number may be on the low side. There were several motivations for the creation and actions of Action T4, perhaps for the largest with the belief in the necessity to create a clean bloodline, as the eugenics movement was spreading throughout Europe and Germany in particular. Action T4 was also intriguing because, as Ian Kershaw puts it, it was causing grave concern and threatened to alienate supporters of the regime, showing that despite relentless propaganda relating to useless eaters, public opinion was not comfortable with the slaughter of people with disabilities. Again, we see that the lack of organisation inherent in the Nazis' policies all throughout the 1930s, suggesting that, rather than the consistent, concerted attack on the Jews that intentionalists like Lucy Davidovich championed, the systematic slaughter of millions of people developed gradually and was not planned from the beginning. The massacre of various differing minority groups in Germany all throughout the 1930s were horrific. The perpetrators of these crimes' motivations are difficult to understand. However, it is important that they are. Political pragmatism and the desire to create clean bloodlines were motivating factors. What is not seen, however, is a concerted effort to destroy members of the population from the very beginning, but rather a set of choices throughout the 1930s that slowly shaped what eventually became the final solution. After all, as Zoros Bergen says, Adolf Hitler was not a brilliant, original thinker.